let me, sorry, Zoom took over my whole screen and I do not want that. Exit full screen, there we go. So the first one that Emily and I are going to talk about is the Hygiene Stations Toolkit, and it's focused on the Portland Loo, as you can see in the slide here. This effort resulted from the strengths and needs assessment that was completed by all of you many moons ago now, that prioritized an interest in finding ways to support municipalities as they provided both hygiene and drinking water access to people who might otherwise have access to taps and bathrooms and ways to wash. And that is primarily people experiencing homelessness, but not just. And the work that we took on was closely engaged with East Yards, among others. And we worked through a series of processes where our first goal was to try to find a community in the region that was interested in doing this, of actually building one. And through that process, we explored a couple of different relationships with institutions in the region, like the Gateway Water Management Authority and others, LA County Parks, LA City Parks. We talked to a lot of folks that may be interested in deploying a resource like this. And in the end, we discovered some interest from high-level staff at the city of Carson. And for a little while, we had a plan to work together with the city of Carson to actually install a hygiene station somewhere in the city. Though there was strong interest from senior level staff at the city, when they brought the idea out to political leadership in the city, there was a lack of support, is maybe a light way of saying it. There was resistance from the political leadership at doing something like this. And they expressed a lot of what many of us, I think, on this call know is a false understanding of what it means to provide services to people who are experiencing homelessness, that it is a magnet for more problems and a source of crime and other things. And we all know that to be false, but the political leaders really subscribe to that misunderstanding. And it was a barrier that we couldn't overcome. And it was a painful barrier to experience, I think, amongst all of us that were working on the project. The way we pivoted was instead to develop the toolkit that Emily is going to walk you through here in a few minutes. It is less of an impact than we'd hoped it would have been, but through this, we hope we've actually produced something that can be a really strong impact in the future, as those of you that are interested in pursuing this kind of work in the cities that you work with, or others who pick up this tool and use it, can advocate and actually implement installing hygiene stations across LA County for the use of people who would benefit from them. One of the really exciting things we discovered along the way, and I may be stealing Emily's thunder, is that there actually are people in the region who are doing this already. And we have some case studies shown here where the city of Los Angeles is already installing these, and the city of Monrovia has 2 of them installed. So we share those case studies in the toolkit, so that as cities are considering this, or as you're working with cities to try to consider this, there are some examples of how their neighbors are already making the decision that this is the right resource for them. So I'll maybe turn it over to Emily now to actually walk through the kit itself, and then both of us are available to answer questions when we get to that part of the program today. Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That was really helpful. I'm really excited to share the final Hygiene Stations Toolkit. And like Mike mentioned, even though the initial goal of installing, the Portland Loo wasn't accomplished, I think it's still a really great opportunity to kind of work with the team, with ECRs, and providing a resource that could hopefully reach a broader audience and just prompt that dialogue around the need for hygiene stations. And so for those who aren't too familiar with the Portland Loo, it's a permanent single occupancy restroom designed for safety, durability, and efficient maintenance that I can go into a little bit more detail later. So the toolkit itself is really designed to help city staff, community organizations, or hygiene advocates interested in implementing the Portland Loo in their community. So this toolkit, we took a lot of the information and resources that we initially gathered for the city of Carson and formalized it and consolidated it in a way that was a little bit easier to read and navigate. And it was truly a team effort. ECR has also shared really great feedback and knowledge and resources that we were able to incorporate into the final toolkit. So it includes 5 major sections here, and it's also designed to be an interactive PDF. So you can kind of click through on these headers to easily navigate to the different sections of the toolkit. So first I'll go over the executive summary. It's really a roll-up of all the other sections. It summarizes why, the lessons learned, the benefits, some of the steps you should take to kind of facilitate implementation depending on, your role. If you're an elected appointed official, city staff, this is kind of the section where it all summarizes everything. So we start with the background, providing a little bit more context around the urgency, the need for hygiene stations, and specifically mentioning how the systemic failure around housing and disinvestment in public infrastructure has really disproportionately impacted people experiencing homelessness. And following the project sketch, which initially looked at 3 different types of hygiene stations at different price points and different levels of permanency, the team chose to go with the Portland Loo due to the customizable features and just the overarching community benefits. So this next chapter just provides a lot more information on the Portland Loo, including the origin based in Portland, the different features, the benefits right here, specifically highlighting dignity, community acceptance, social inclusion, designing with safety, and also the ease of maintenance. There's also a really great opportunity for placemaking and creating art with the Portland Loo to kind of fit in different communities. We also talk a little bit more about best practices for siting. So we included a little list of general considerations. Usually Portland Loos have been located around parks, near transit stations, places that are frequently trafficked, including sidewalks and downtowns. So we were kind of included some of these little diagrams to document the specific site considerations. We also wanted to highlight the importance of community and stakeholder outreach from the very beginning to make sure community needs are met and their thoughts and feedback were included throughout the planning process. We also wanted to include a page that addressed common concerns. So a lot of the questions and the concerns that were raised from the city of Carson and some of the other cities that we did engage with, we wanted to directly address that. So kind of like an FAQ, if you will. And then like what Mike had mentioned earlier, we also included a section on case studies just to share the different success stories across the country. Cities that successfully implemented the Portland Loo, including a timeline of events, the number of Loos that they have, where they're located, and just major takeaways from each of the case studies. So we have some in San Antonio, in Massachusetts, Miami, and like Mike had mentioned, Monrovia, and in Los Angeles. So the city of Los Angeles, actually installed 7 Portland Loos this year to replace some of the older automated self-cleaning ones. The city of Monrovia also has 2 installed in their city, one at a park and the other at a library, and they added some really great art to kind of add some more creativity and placemaking elements to their parks. We met with the council member at Monrovia. She expressed there was a lot of support that came from the community, so it was really encouraging to hear that positive feedback from a local city. And some of the key takeaways that were shared among the case studies included a lot of engagement from all stakeholders to build trust and comfort among community members and elected officials. A lot of the cities also had worked with attendants to help monitor and clean the Loo, and also just realizing the importance of health and safety over the cost of the Loo. Some of the case studies also feature online videos, so you can also click on these links to view them. And then lastly, we have the implementation section. Again, implementation is informed by all community members, whether you're an elected official, city staff, business owner, community organizer, etc. I think this table kind of helps serve as a reminder as to what you want to accomplish and what you can do to help facilitate the implementation of the Portland Loo. And we also included a kind of typical timeline for implementation of the Portland Loo, which will definitely vary depending on local regulations and other factors. But we wanted to list some of the major milestones that should be taken. Most importantly, I think, is the stakeholder and community engagement from the very beginning and throughout the planning process and after. I think each step listed here would definitely benefit by building community trust and relationships early on in the process. And finally, we have this table listing some of the state and local funding programs that can help support the purchase and installation of the Loo that cities can look at and refer to. So in the appendix, we also included the drawing set for the Portland Loo. We also included a list of recommended resources that are already out there, for readers to take a look at or to learn more about hygiene advocacy, the Portland Loo itself, and just become more informed on homelessness. So yeah, that's kind of a quick overview. I don't want to take up too much time, but I would love to hear anyone's thoughts or comments, and we'd be happy to answer them.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hi, so the Portland Loo, is it just like a restroom only, or is there showers? I missed a little bit of it, that part.
So what's great is you can really customize it. So the base kind of level is really just, it is a standalone restroom, but you can add features to it. So some cities have added showers outside, like some are located near beaches and they added showers. There's also an exterior hand washing station. It's a little bit hard to see here.
Okay.
But
Cool.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course.
Emily, there's a question in the chat about the basic costs and some general figures available for people who are interested in seeking grants to do this kind of work. And I'm curious, I know we had some of that information from Monrovia. Were we able to include that from the case studies?
Yes, let me double check here. Let's see. I don't think I included the specific cost of the Portland Loo itself in the case study, but I recall that it costs around $280,000, around their ballpark estimate.
Yeah, I think it's slightly more than that with installation too, but it is a relatively discrete. Yeah, if you have the right spot to put it, it's a relatively inexpensive intervention. And then the other question was elaboration about maintenance, and I think you're right. The questioner was suggesting that some cities are worried about the cost, not the cost of installation, but rather the cost of keeping it and maintaining it.
Yeah, so the city of LA, I think they clean it 3 times a day, and the maintenance facilities are located inside of the Portland Loo. So it's a really easy, kind of just go in, open it, and you are able to wash it down. And I believe they do more deep cleaning once a week.
So to that question, there's a bunch that we share in the toolkit about how first this particular the Portland Loo is designed to be relatively easy to maintain, and we share a little bit about how communities are adding the maintenance element once it's been built. Given our lack of time, I think we can probably turn to the next group to share the next tool, and we're really excited that everybody's interested in this. It will live for at least now on the Water Talks website, so it's there available to download, I hope, already there, and if not, it will soon be there. Over the long term, it will be somewhere available for everyone to benefit from and use in your advocacy and in your work. And we really appreciated the opportunity to work on it.
Yeah, thank you. I think industrial greening is next, so I'm about to
So
gonna pull
yeah,
that
so
up.
we'll switch from Emily back to Emily because the next
Yes.
one is also Emily's project.
Let's see here. Okay. Okay. I think everything is here. Okay. Yeah, so I'm excited to share the second project and the work we've done that kind of initially started with industrial greening and then also evolved into strategies for redeveloping vacant and underutilized sites in Boyle Heights. So I wanted to provide a little bit more background before going into the story map. So this project concept stemmed from concerns around trash and industrial.
Okay, it's some presentation, so I don't have to, I mean, I'll just look at the slides once in a while.
Hey, Samantha, oh, somebody muted you. No problem.
Oh, no worries.
Hi, sorry, I'm I thought that we had a meeting at 1, and so I'm multitasking today.
Oh no,
no problem at all.
good. No problem. Yeah, so as part of the initial sketch, we use spatial analysis and GIS to map and identify some of the opportunities for brownfield remediation and potential redevelopment. And so following the project sketch, we worked closely with Pro-Mesa Boyle Heights with Francisco to narrow down and prioritize the sites within the Boyle Heights community. We also worked closely with Tori Scher from LA Neighborhood Land Trust, who has, the expertise and the experience with park redevelopment. And both organizations provided incredible local knowledge and relationships to this effort and the site selection process. So once we had our list of sites, we tracked down property owner information and mailed letters to assess their interest. And that's where we ran into some of challenges with communication and just getting a hold of them. So while we were waiting for the responses, we were still engaging with different stakeholders and public agencies like Council District 14, City of Rec and Parks, LA Sanitation, to just inform them of our efforts, get any additional support, and just start building those relationships. We wanted to make sure that we documented all this work. So that led to the creation of the story map. We also prepared a memo with more detail on the site selection process, stakeholder engagement, best practices, and case studies. So this story map, which has also been translated to Spanish, is really intended to memorialize the work we've done to date and learn more about what goes into redeveloping brownfields and underutilized sites. And it includes barriers we encountered, best practices that address them, and some case studies from different cities around the US. I think during this project, we learned that brownfield remediation and park redevelopment, it's a long and complex process from start to finish. So we hope that this helps set the stage for additional work beyond Water Talks. And I think the momentum, is already continuing with LA Sanitation. So I can share a little bit more of that after I walk through the story map. So we chose to use story map to make it more visual, less text heavy, and just provide more context using interactive maps and exhibits. So I can quickly go over the format of the story map. It's simple to navigate. You can just keep scrolling, or you can refer to the banner here to jump to different sections of the story map. So the story map starts off, quick overview of Water Talks and the project. We also provide a little bit more context for Boyle Heights, specifically using this interactive map and data that we got from LA County Rec and Parks from their Parks and Recreation Needs Assessment in 2016. So we go into more of the project challenges and best practices in this next section. And I won't go into too much detail, but I'm happy to answer questions with all of these, but wanted to share that, landowner outreach, site acquisition, and just the lack of formal policy to keep property owners accountable were some of the biggest barriers we learned and we had to learn how to overcome during this process. Mm-hmm. So we looked at a lot of other cities across the country to see what worked for them, as well as community organizations across the country. And we wanted to include them as best practices in the sections for each barrier here. So we included some of the case studies and lessons learned that implemented some of those best practices in this last section. And again, I won't go into every single case study, but wanted to share a little bit more here as an example, Madison Avenue Park and Community Garden in LA as an example. And you can kind of use these tools to toggle between the before and after, which I think is really interesting to see. We also wanted to provide a little bit more context with a vicinity map and just images of it itself. And so this project specifically, is made possible between partnerships with Trust for Public Land, the city, and the Los Angeles Community Garden Council. And I think another key to its success was its community-driven design process. And again, yeah, we have case studies from all across the United States. So if you're interested, I think it's really great to kind of take a look through them and see how those strategies can be implemented here in Los Angeles. And finally, wanted to include another, list of helpful resources that are already out there, including Trust for Public Lands Pocket Park Toolkit, and some of the other reports and documents listed in the case studies. So yeah, that wraps up the story map. And I also wanted to share a little update with LA Sanitation. So they have plans to apply for an EPA through the Environmental Planning Agency community-wide assessment grant, which could help with environmental due diligence. And that is a really great step to facilitate the redevelopment process. So we were able to share some of those sites with LA Sanitation for them to include as targeted locations. So connecting them with Promesa Boyle Heights and the Land Trust to continue this effort beyond water talks. So yeah, thank you again for listening. And I would love to, if anyone has any thoughts or comments on the story map or the project itself, I'd love to hear them.
And this is live in such a way we can drop it in the chat, right, Emily, so people can go visit the story map?
Yes, I can do that. Right now, how do I go to the chat?
Given that the last tool is both awesome and big, and I don't see any comments happening, we're excited for people to engage with that link and benefit from the collection that Emily just put together. But I think looking at the clock, we should switch over to the tap water folks. Andrea and Rihanna, you're on. I don't know who's screen sharing.
Hello, I can start. Let me screen share. It's nice to be here again with all of you. And if you don't know me, my name's Rihanna Fossum, and I'm a community water planner with the Stand Tech team. And it's exciting to be at this point of sharing these resources that we've been working on for so long. So we're going to dive into the Path to Tap tool, which I think you should have all gotten links from Peter, but we'll follow up after and share the English and Spanish links and also some other resources related to it. But I wanted to just start by reflecting on how we got to the Path to Tap tool. So this came out from our development of the TAP testing program and thinking about how the different steps of TAP testing could work and who could be involved and what the testing kits could look like. It was really clear that we needed to weave in education and educational materials throughout any type of TAP testing program. And so we thought that a contribution Stantec could make during this first phase of developing the program was actually creating some educational tools that could be used regardless of whether a TAP testing program got funded in the future. And so we brainstormed a lot of ideas with the leadership group on different topics and ideas that they would like to see educational materials be developed about. And so if you're seeing this screen, there's some sticky notes with a bunch of different ideas related to drinking water quality and education. And they span a lot of topics. We have things like what's the difference between tap water and that water you get at a water refill station or bottled water. How do I read a consumer confidence report? How can we make sure that local treatment facilities are making water safe? So we collected all of these ideas and we added them to this Miro board and started grouping different like buckets of categories. And at first we were kind of thinking that each subject would have its own resource get developed for it. But then we kind of had this like great aha moment where we realized that all of these topics really flow together, like literally flow together from the water source through treatment, through distribution systems, and out to our faucets. And so we decided that it would make sense to go back to this path to tap one pager that Tree People developed and really expand it and make it more interactive. And so that is how we got to this tool, which is an interactive Adobe InDesign publish online tool that a really wonderful graphic designer on our team helped us with. And it's meant to be completely interactive. Every step is clickable. And it's also meant to be kind of a choose your own adventure. So you can select what topics are most interesting to you and then dive as deep as you'd like. There's actually over 11,000 words behind these buttons. And so it's a lot of information, but we tried to break it into sort of digestible sections. So maybe I'll go through the first few steps and then Andrea can get into the bulk of the water quality information. But the first step is water sources. So learn more about the region's water sources. And we talk about LA County receiving water from both local and imported water sources. I just wanted to point out sort of this early acknowledgement in the imported water page about how a lot of water that we've taken from ancestral waters and lands of other California Native American tribes is stolen, and it's also energy intensive and vulnerable to climate change impacts and earthquakes. And something to note is that we also created a separate report about local surface waters, streams, and lakes in the LA region, kind of recognizing that there's this divide between surface water and tap water in our area, and also resources for California Native American tribes to get involved in monitoring and protection of surface waters. So that's a separate document, but it kind of fits into this grounding of where our water comes from. So we also talk about groundwater and then some of the big water recycling projects that are underway in our area. And then for navigation, I'll just note that there's these buttons on the side, and then also on the bottom left corner, there's back and forth buttons, and then you can go home at any time. But step 2 is learning more about the water treatment process. So we have some very cute water treatment train icons for both surface water and groundwater. The next page is all about the distribution system and service lines, so how our pipes impact the quality of our drinking water. And the next page is premise plumbing, so thinking about how the materials in our buildings impact drinking water, and the important sort of distinction between the responsibility of protecting drinking water before and after the property line. So before it becomes the responsibility of the water provider, and after it becomes the responsibility of the building or homeowner. So we provide some different definitions all about premise plumbing, and then also explain what causes premise plumbing contamination, how are issues detected, and then one of the kind of, I guess, tricky parts was thinking about the tone for solutions for both tenants and for property owners, and acknowledging that there is a power imbalance there. And so we wanted to make sure tenants had resources related to what their rights are as tenants and what their rights are to habitable places to live versus property owners, like what they are responsible for maintaining, while also giving some resources on how to access those solutions. And just a shout out that UCLA Luskin Center is currently almost done with these policy briefs about premise plumbing solutions, and they're kind of tailored to different audiences. So this link will take you to the publications page on UCLA's website, where those policy briefs will live very soon. And then the next page is a brief history of premise plumbing and tap water policy in California from 1872 to now. And I think that takes us all the way to the faucet, which I will stop sharing and let Andrea go from here. Let's see.
Thanks, Rihanna. I'll start sharing again. Can you see it?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, so just as a recap, Rihanna took us through the path all the way to the tap. So the last section of the path to tap resource is talking about the actual water. So again, from the main menu here, you can click on all of these links to learn more about the water. So the first one, this section is in general about drinking water quality. So here we have subsections too, and first, about drinking water contaminants. So here we have information about different kinds of water contaminants and some that have been highlighted specifically by the leadership group, like learning more about PFAS, for example, and lead and copper. And yeah, we have some nice diagrams as well that can hopefully make it easier to understand. I'm a very visual person, so they help me at least, but yeah. And here we have a general description about like primary contaminants versus secondary contaminants, and yeah, so drinking water contaminants. Then the second one is drinking water regulations. So how are these contaminants that we just learned about regulated? So we talk about primary drinking water regulations versus secondary drinking water regulations, and then here there's some background on like how these regulations came to be in the first place to provide a little bit more history. And then the third section, we have the fate and transport of drinking water contaminants. So how do they get to the water in the first place? So all of these are clickable, and we talk about contaminants that come from human activities, for example, or the ones that come from like discharge from industrial, chemical, and agricultural factories, and we provide a little bit more information. And lastly, we have a glossary with common terms that are talked about throughout the throughout the whole resource. So we summarize like drinking water regulation terms related to drinking water regulations, categories of primary drinking water contaminants, and some characteristics like water hardness and turbidity. And all of these are helpful. You might have seen these acronyms in like your water quality report and so on. So I think these terms are helpful to have in like a back pocket to get to when needed. So that's like general about drinking water quality. And then the second one here is about how to learn more about your specific water quality. So this is something that we've shown several times in other leadership group meetings, and we've incorporated here, and it's the guide to find your water quality report. So all the steps have been incorporated into this tool, and we have the steps here, starting with how to find your water provider, and here we link the tool to do that, and we have all the steps listed, so you can click on them, and it kind of gives you instructions and where to click and everything. And then the second step is finding the actual water quality report. So again, the website is linked here of where you may find it and all the steps where you can click on. And the third step is actually like reading the water quality report and how to understand it and understand what it's providing. And so we have an example of a water quality data table where we define some of the terms. And yeah, and some of the sections that you might see, general information about the water quality data table. And lastly, this is more like an FYI. We have some general information about drinking water systems. So from when if you wanna learn more about your water system, here there's more information about the types of water systems, regulators. So you can learn more about who regulates your water system and like who makes the decisions about your water. And we have the different categories of like public water systems versus state small water systems. So that's information about your water quality specifically. And then the last one is how to address tap water quality concerns. So we start with some common issues. And here you can see, just different common issues of characteristics that you may find in your water. And here we have possible causes and how to resolve them. And then we have how to test your water. So here we have information related to tap testing and different options like laboratory testing versus home lab testing kit, DIY home testing kits. And during the tap testing demonstration that we had, we used simple lab panels, and they fall under this home lab testing kit lab category. And we have more information on like choosing what to test for in the first place, and then how to get to these options. And the last section is about solutions. So we talk about short-term solutions and long-term solutions. And and because there's so much information, all of this there's always more to learn, I guess. And so we also have a We're Excited page where we include all the references that we use to develop this. And if you feel inclined to learn more and explore more, all of these links are clickable, so you can go and explore a little bit more on other websites. But that's the path to tap. We were very excited to share this with you. I'll pass it back to Rihanna.
Yeah, I mean, seeing this all at once can be really overwhelming, especially if, people aren't super familiar with drinking water quality. And so I think the kind of beautiful thing about this tool is you can click around and follow your own curiosity. And the other thing is we're going to send out sort of like a static version of this tool. That's not a live link, but it's a PDF with like every page as its own separate page, so that if you find yourself in a position to have like a workshop or educational outreach around water quality with community members, you can sort of curate your own presentations. And we'll also send all of the like illustrations and digital assets that you can use if you want to develop your own content. So we'll follow up with those resources. But looking at the time, I'm curious if there's any like initial reactions or feedback. I'm really excited to find out how you think you might use this tool within your organizations. But Peter, I see you went off mute.
Well, I did. I just wanted to add in that I think this is already available through the Water Talks website. I'm not sure if that's the link we dropped into the chat. If it is, that's great. I had no idea how deep this goes. I mean, because I've been clicking around and looking at it. So yeah, it can feel a little overwhelming, but we also do have some, in conjunction there at the Water Talks website, then there would also be community specific toolkits and story maps that can provide the details of here's the water provider and here's some other information. These things are a couple of years old, but that's a complementary tool there as well. And probably need to spend some time walking everybody through the website, especially the new version of it. anyhow, that comment, let's see. And right, yeah, okay, and yeah, we'll get the links out for this and for the other presentations we had today. And if we don't have a link for the hygiene station, it is in a PDF format, so I may just share it with this group so everybody has it for their own library. But it will be available on the new Water Talks website as well. So any questions or thoughts? Yeah.
I was just gonna add that yeah, I do recommend playing around a bit with this tool. Like Peter, like you said, we do go a little bit deep, but it can be overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. We try to organize things as much as possible, and if anyone is interested in just keeping it at the high level, just this first page shows you a lot on how water gets to the tap in the first place. And then if something calls your attention, you can choose to click on the item and want to learn more about it. And then, yeah, many of the tools, I guess just getting familiar with this first page and knowing what's in it, then you can find it easier to like navigate and like, oh yeah, I want to know more about drinking water regulations. Like, oh, okay, I'll just go to this page and learn a little bit more, and so on. And then the guides, I think they can be helpful too. But yeah, I just wanted to add that.
Peter, I just scanned the Water Talks website. I don't see this link there yet, or at least I couldn't find it quickly. So the links that we put in the chat, I know work, and the Water Talks website will either route to those links or will have their own version at some point. If it's there already, I just can't find it quickly. But the links we put in the chat definitely work, and we look forward to having people accessing it and digging in to see what they can find.
Yeah, and I know that PlaceWorks is shifting back and forth between the current website and construction of the new one and trying to get that construction taken care of by year's end so that it's live shortly after the first of the year. And just, I guess, as a reminder for any of you who joined us a little later on in the process here, let me see where we're at here. And anyway, just trying to